Hey everybody. I'm sitting here in my empty classroom. It should be full of students right now. It should be my second period class. There should be sixth graders all around me, but that's not the case right now. So usually I like to make these book recommendation videos at the end of summer, or I'm sorry, at the end of the school year, when parents and kids are getting ready for summer vacation, and it allows me to suggest some good books. We need that now. So here we go. I don't have as many books. Some of these books maybe I've mentioned before. So let's try to get at it real quick. And I've got them kind of in order from age recommendation, and I'll let you know. Anyway, so here's the first one. I just read this book like 2 or 3 days ago. The Last Kids on Earth. You might have seen this. It's a series. I think there are 5 books, and so it's about this boy named Jack. And it starts out. Jack is middle school kid, and it starts out. There's been this like not even really a zombie apocalypse. There are zombies. It's like a monster apocalypse. So there's all these different kinds of monsters, and Jack is on his own, but he's been on his own his whole life. He's been a foster kid bouncing around from family to family. So he's maybe not dealing with as much emotional trauma as some of the other kids, but he finds these friends. Here's these friends, and it's a real easy read. There's lots of pictures in there. If you've got a kid at home whose head explodes when you suggest reading a book, suggest this one, Last Kids on Earth by Max Baillier. It's a fun book. Kids will like it. Middle school or even elementary school kids would like this book. There we go. Next one. I think I've pushed this one before. The Season of Sticks Malone by Kekla Magoon. And this is a cool book because it's just about these two kids, these two brothers, and then this mysterious kid, Sticks Malone, who shows up in their neighborhood. And he's the coolest kid they've ever seen. And he leads them on some adventures. And some of the adventures are just fun. Like, hey, let's go swim in this little pool. And others are not really dangerous, but questionable. But this is a great book for, again, even elementary school age, middle school kids. I've got middle school kids who read it and like it. It's a fun kind of summer adventure book, The Season of Sticks Malone. This one, I don't know if I've talked about, but this is one of the most unique books I've ever read. The Invention of Hugo Cabret. And you can see it's like scary thick, but it's unique because it's probably told equally in pictures and in words. And I can kind of give you a little taste of it. The first, I think, 10 pages, if I remember, are also, because part 1, and this is probably illegal what I'm doing, part 1, and then it's just images that begin telling the story. And so if you kind of flip through, you can see that it's equal parts picture, equal parts text, and it's a really cool way to tell a story. The Invention of Hugo Cabret by Brian Selznick. He's got a few other books that are like this. This was his first one. This one is awesome. So check this out. Next, okay, so Wonder. I know that you've read Wonder. If you know me, if you've been paying attention, I'm always recommending this book. One of the best books for. If I could have my way, every middle school kid would read this book. Wonder by R.J. Palacio. So I've said a lot about this, but here's why we're talking about it today. Because if you remember Julian. Julian was the bad kid who caused a lot of problems in this book for Augie, but what I like about this is here's this new book that came out called White Bird that R.J. Palacio did, and she wrote the book and she drew the pictures. She's just showing off at this point, and it's Julian's backstory kind of, and so it picks up after this book, and Julian is kind of thinking about what he's done and the trauma that he created and stuff, and he calls up his grandmother, who we learn was a Holocaust survivor. So this is Julian's grandmother telling her story of surviving the Holocaust, and it's a graphic novel. So there's beautiful pictures, and it's a really cool story, and it kind of gives you this message that Julian's a bad kid. But he's learning and he's growing, and that's what we hope for everybody. So if you haven't read Wonder, first of all, read Wonder. If you have, check this out, White Bird, R.J. Palacio. I feel like I've talked about this one before too. Kate DiCamillo. She's a really well known young adult author. Louisianas Way Home. This is just a cool story about this girl whose family is not as functional as most, and she's trying to find her way in the world, literally and figuratively. And it's a really cute story. There's a couple subsequent books that kind of pick up her story, but this was the first one. I read this maybe the end of last year, but middle school or lower, good stuff. All right, so if we're this is middle school and high school. Okay. Now, 10 years ago, this was an incredibly popular series, Uglies by Scott Westerfield. This is the second book, Pretties, because the first one I can't keep on the shelf, and I've got lots of books checked out right now. But the premise of this is a post-apocalyptic novel, and the idea is that when kids turn a certain age, 15, I believe, everyone in the society gets plastic surgery, and so the book is called Uglies because everybody who has not yet had this surgery, they're called Uglies, and then when you get your surgery, you become a pretty, and so the idea is you choose exactly what you want to look like, but there's some side effects to the surgery that we kind of learn as the book goes along. But anyway, the book is about is this girl named Tally who decides she's not sure if she wants to have this surgery. And when she makes that decision, she kind of finds this whole other world, and it's a really cool book. It's the first of a 4-part series. Like I said, this is the second one, Pretties, and then what comes after that, specials and then extras. So Uglies by Scott Westerfield. Check it out. So a lot of people have been talking about how it feels like we're in a novel, and so right now, and so your kids maybe don't need more of that. So maybe they want some more fantasy adventure stuff. Here's one that might hit too close to home, or it might be easier for them to read. The 11th Plague by Jeff Hirsch, and this is it picks up after there's been an apocalypse. There's been not apocalypse. There's been a war. There's been an influenza outbreak, and big chunks of society have died. And so it's about this 15-year-old kid named Steven, and we see through his eyes how society is trying to piece itself back together. And it's a really good story. I liked it. Very, it's typical post-apocalyptic stuff. But it's good. Okay, so I have to have one classic on the list, and here it is. I think that this book has been around long enough that there's probably kids out there who are of the right age, mature middle school, high school, who maybe haven't read this because it's older now. And if 10 years ago, this was the most popular book in my classroom, like bar none. And so The Fault in Our Stars by John Green. It's a love story. It's been made into a movie, of course, but read the book. Books are better, okay? Let's see. There's this one. I read this year. The Poet X. This is for probably high school, I would say. And by Elizabeth Acevedo. And this is one of my favorite books this year. It's told in verse, which is pretty cool. So it's a quick read, but it's about this girl named Xiomara, and starts with an X. She calls herself the Poet X, and it's about her finding her voice. And I'll just kind of leave it at that. She's in the beginning, she's not very confident, and then she kind of discovers poetry, and it's a really great book. One of my favorite books that I read this year. The last recommendation. I don't have a prop. I've got an index card with the author and title. One of Us is Lying by Karen McManus, and I don't have it because my kids have checked it out. But if you want a book that's going to kind of take you away, and this is mature middle school to high school for sure. I read this book, I think in the summer, One of Us is Lying, and I couldn't stop reading it. I read it in about 24 hours because it was that good. It's just it's a mystery. The premise is there are 5 people in a room, five high school kids in a room after school suspension, and one of the boys dies in the room, and so then immediately all 4 of them become suspects. And so it's a mystery told from all 4 different perspectives. Really cool. And there's a sequel that just came out. I've got it at home, and I can't wait to read it. And so that's about it. Read a book. There's a lot of time right now. Be good to each other. Be safe. Read a book.